How do I get my snare sound? This is how it sounds. Pretty good, right? Well, it took me countless hours to be able to figure out how to make it sound like that. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to tune the snare and how to mix it and how I get the drum sound that everyone wants to know how I get. And I'm going to show you guys how to do it in just 15 minutes. Today, we're answering the question literally everyone is asking, and I mean everyone. Now, I do have to let you know, to get this out of the way, I use triggers and samples, but it's not all too bad because I mix it with natural sound. Now, this is a Gretsch 6x14-inch snare. It has an Evans heavyweight head on it. And if you know worship music these days, then you know that the snares that are used are usually deeper snares with like tons of snare wires on the bottom and everything. So with this snare, I can't really achieve the exact sound I want without having to buy an $1,000 snare. When I say achieve the sound I want, I mean through natural sound, which is why we're using samples and triggers. So like I said, I spent a while trying to figure out how to make this sound amazing, how I wanted it to sound in my videos, and I think I figured it out. All right, first let's go ahead and get the tedious part out of the way, which is the tuning. I have this handy dandy tuning tool here, and let's go ahead and get to it. I'm going to show you guys how to do this. We're going to first start by loosening both the top head and the bottom head completely, like the lugs are completely loose. Make sure when you loosen it to go from top, bottom, side, side, this side, this side, this side, this side. If you've ever tuned a drum, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to speed this up so I don't bore you guys. Once we've loosened the top head completely, let's go ahead and move to the bottom head. Look at that. I have 2 broken snare wires. I didn't even know about that. All right, so once we've got the bottom and top head completely loosened, we're going to start with the bottom head. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to tighten it until you feel the first bit of tension. And remember, when you tighten, to go from top, bottom, side, 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 side. So nothing is like overly too tightened or overly not tightened enough. Turn it until you just feel the tension. And then after you feel it, we're going to turn it one more time. So one more complete turn. All right, once we've done everything to tension and then one turn, we're going to do 2 more turns on each lug. Next thing we're going to do to make sure that every side sounds the same, I'm going to hit the drum around the edges and make sure that all the tones are matching. Now, I think I actually have it too tight, so I'm going to loosen everything by a half turn, I'd say. As you can see, we're not getting much tone, and that's because it's so tight, but that's what you want to have, is you want to have your snare bottom tight. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip the snare over, and then we're going to do the top. One important thing you want to make sure is that your snare wires are not touching the part of your snare that's holding it. You want to give them room to breathe. All right, so we're going to tighten all of this until you feel the tension, and then we're going to do one more turn, and then we'll go from there. All right, once you've tightened everything to its tension, let's see how it sounds. Pretty flat, right? Wow, that sounds like really bad. I wonder why. Well, guys, I was just editing this video and I realized that I didn't really have anything to record the drum. So all you're hearing is the distorted mic footage from the mic I'm wearing right here on my hoodie. So yeah, that's why it's so bad. Trust me, it would sound way better if you could hear the audio differently. Sorry about it. You're gonna hear the actual sound when we get into the mixing though. So just trust me. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to tighten everything again by one full turn. All right, let's see how it sounds after we've done that. All right, so that's a little higher than I'd like it to be, so we're going to loosen it now. First, let's start off by turning off the snares, and then let's match our tone around each one. So you're going to go like this. For example, this one is higher than this one, which means I'm going to tighten this one just a little bit. All right, now that I matched the tone, I'm going to loosen everything by, let's do 1/4 of a turn. All right, let's put the snares back on and see how it sounds. All right, I think it's still a little too tight for me, so I'm going to loosen it again by another 1/4. All right, now let's see how it sounds. So the reason it sounds a little heavy when I hit it is because of the heavyweight head. So that's basically to the point that I like it. And remember, guys, the snares can't really get it to the sound that I'm looking for with just natural sound. But another thing I like to do, and this helps with the actual snare when we mix it, is loosen the lug that is closest to me, almost completely. So that makes it sound even deeper, which I like. Again, this doesn't sound perfect. Definitely does not sound perfect. If you're like me and you have a bit of a thinner snare, this is what we're working with, and then you guys are going to be able to achieve the sound you want with the samples and triggers. Let's go ahead and get into the mixing part. All right, so as you guys can see right here, I have a snare channel, a snare sample channel, and then a snare trigger sample down here. Now, you can see all these other channels of all my other drums. I'm going to make a video in the future showing how I mix everything, but in today's video, it's just going to be the snare. So I have 3 different channels set up for the snare. This first channel is just the natural snare sound, this one right here, and all it's inputting is just the sound from the microphone. Let's hear how that sounds real quick. All right, so as you can see, pretty raw. It's a little quiet too. We're gonna mix that with our samples in the future and our triggers as well. So basically when I record my drums, all I'm pressing record on is this channel right here, the one that says snare. And then after I'm done recording, I'm gonna drag my audio file from right here into the snare sample and the snare trigger, which triggers both of those channels as well and those tracks. That's the natural snare sound. Now let's hear what this snare sample sounds like. This is pretty cool. This snare sample is from Brandon Lake's That's Who I Praise. I soloed out the drums and Moises, and then I just made a quick sample by cutting out one hit of the snare, and then I just put it into Slate Trigger 2, which we'll talk about in a second. Sound like this. All right, and now our final channel we have for our snare is the snare trigger, which is going to sound, in my opinion, it sounds the best. Here we go. As you can tell, I have a lot of gain on that. All right, now let me tell you what each one of these tracks or these channels have on them so that you can achieve the sound that I have. All right, first let's start with the natural snare sound. I do have to warn you guys, I did pay for some of this stuff. As you can see right here, I have a silencer on it first. And what a silencer does is it drowns out all the other sound from the drums and the cymbals to make sure just your snare is heard. And since I haven't recorded any other drums, you're not gonna really tell a difference in here. But when you do record your whole set, you're gonna tell a huge difference. This is what it looks like, the silencer plugin. You can just look it up online. All right, so this plugin was, prepare yourselves, $30. Now it is all worth it though, because I use it on every single drum I have. As you can see, silencer, 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 silencer. So many silencers. It makes a huge difference, and you can really tell when you play full drum set, like I said. All right, anyways, that's the silencer. Next, I have a channel EQ. You don't have to pay for this. This is built in Logic Pro. I forgot to mention, I use Logic Pro for my mixing. All right, so we have a standard snare EQ. You can copy this as much as you want. All right, so now let's go ahead and see what it sounds like with this channel EQ. This is with the EQ. Without the EQ. So as you can tell, a big difference. Next EQ, we have a rock snare drum EQ. That's what it looks like. Let's go ahead and see what that sounds like with the EQ. Without it. Again, big difference. Next, we have snare buzz. Now this, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe this was free. So these are what I have it to: tightness to 32%, studio 4%. And this actually makes a huge difference. Now, this is what it sounds like with it. Without it. That is such a big difference. It's crazy. All right, snare buzz, well worth it. Next we have, I believe this is reverb. Yes, okay, so I have vocal hall reverb. Again, you can copy all my things I have down here. This is with vocal hall reverb. Without it. Again, humongous difference. Next we have a linear EQ. I don't know why I added this. Let's go ahead and see why. It's a rock snare drum linear EQ. You can copy it. This is what it sounds like with it. Without it. So again, every single one of these presets is a huge deal. It affects the sound greatly. Last but not least, and this is very important for a snare drum, we have compression. Now this is built in Logic Pro. It's free. This is what it sounds like with compression. Without it. What in the world was that? Some audio person tell me why that happened, but I guess that's why we have a compressor. I don't know why that happened. All right, but these are the settings I have. Makes a huge difference. It basically just adds more oomph to your snare. All right, so that's all of the natural sound plugins. So yeah, you do have to pay for a couple of those if you want to get the exact sound, but again, you can copy all the EQs and the reverb that I have on there. All right, next we have the snare sample, which I said is from a Bethel song and a That's Who I Praise song. I soloed out the drums and I cut out a small piece of that snare and I made it to a file, and then I inserted it into my biggest friend, Slate Trigger Pro. This is what Slate Trigger or Slate Trigger 2 looks like. All right, so I have Slate Trigger Platinum, which is $50. There is also a free version, but you can't insert your own samples. You have to do with whatever. They have their own free samples when you buy it, which don't sound bad. That's what I used for a little bit actually. But then I decided I wanted a better sound. This is what the That's Who I Praise sound effect sounds like. Sounds like a clap. Then the Bethel snare. Sounds good. All I have, and again, this is an audio channel that I just dragged the natural sound into. All I have in this channel is the Trigger 2. So just both of those, these are the levels I have it at. And if you have the Platinum Trigger 2, you can do this very easily. Again, like I said, edit the songs, take out the drums, solo the drums, and then just cut out the snare. All right, so that's the second channel. And now last but not least, we have the Snare Trigger channel. This one is by far the most important. On this channel, I have a Slate Trigger 2, snare buzz, compression, and gain. Now, I gained this channel because, like I said, it's the most important. It makes the snare sound the best. So now the Trigger 2, I have a couple different samples or triggers for this. First one I have is Ish Melton's signature snare. If you don't know Ish Melton, he's a drummer. He's on Instagram, on YouTube and stuff. He's super good. But this is what Ish Melton's snare sounds like. So it sounds good. Ish Melton snare is part of a snare pack. I believe it might be $35 that you have to buy. My church actually bought it and let me use the samples from it, so that was very nice of them. All right, next let's listen to this David Whitworth snare I have right here. And all I did is on a song that David Whitworth was playing drums, like I said, I take out the drums, I solo the drums, and then I cut out that singular snare hit and make it into a sample. So this is what his snare sounds like. And this is a built-in plugin, a built-in sample with Logic Pro that comes with it. That's what it sounds like. That one actually sounds really good by itself. All right, so that's all that's in Slate Trigger 2. Next, we have the snare buzz. Now, again, like I said, this makes a humongous difference. Here it is without the buzz. Here it is with the buzz. Here's my settings down here if you want to copy them. Next, we have the compression, and I don't know if it's going to do the same thing again. Let's hear it. This is with it. Without it. So all the compression is doing, and as you can see, I have the FET fatten on here, which makes it just fattens the sound. All it's doing is making the snare sound bigger than it actually is. Next, we have the gain, and like I said, this is my favorite channel, so that's why I put the gain on it. Nothing really to show for that. I just add 3 levels of decibels to that. All right, that is basically my snare, guys. That's how I get my snare sound. You don't have to buy the plugins. I think the total was like $100. So I love playing drums. I make videos every week, so I thought it was worth it. So I got all those plugins. If you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. You can still get a very similar sound to what I have with the EQs and the reverb and snare buzz and stuff. So that is how I get my snare. Here's how the final result sounds. Sounds really good. Thank you guys for complimenting me on my snare. I would have never made this video if you guys didn't compliment me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this made sense to you. If you have any questions, make sure to comment down below. I know this was a lot of information to take in, but I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe. And just a reminder, I'm trying to hit 1.5K subs by the end of the year. So I believe we can do it. We're very close. I think we can. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.